James stops dead at the foot of the stairs. That voice, is she singing in Russian? He walks toward the kitchen as if hypnotized. His bare feet on the cold marble make no sound. What he sees when he peers in steals the breath from his lungs. His 3 children, who since losing their mother had never looked so peaceful, are sitting in a circle around Margaret, the housekeeper, completely silent, completely at peace. The kitchen, which used to be filled with crying and complaints at dawn, today is bathed in impossible calm. Leo, Matthew, and Emma form a small circle around that 43-year-old woman, with blue apron and hands weathered by work. She sings softly in a language James recognizes but doesn't understand, while her fingers stroke Emma's blonde hair. The children look at her as if they had found something they'd been searching for years. For the first time in 5 years, his children are smiling. Leo looks up and sees his father standing in the doorway. His blue eyes, identical to his dead mother's, shine with a clarity that breaks the soul. Papa. She sings like Mama. James swallows hard. Something in his chest, asleep for years, begins to awaken. If this story already touched your heart in this first minute, subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find stories that heal, inspire, and make you believe in human goodness again. 3 minutes after that scene in the kitchen, James is sitting in his office, staring at the phone without dialing any number. He can't get the image of his children out of his head. Peaceful. The last time he saw them like this was 5 years ago, when Sarah was still alive and pregnant, singing to them from her womb while he worked late in this same office. Now, the Kensington mansion has become a mausoleum of cold routines. Every room smells of disinfectant and silence. The windows remain closed because the children's screams bother the neighbors. The staff walk on tiptoes as if noise could awaken ghosts. For 5 years, James has hired 17 different nannies, 17 women who promise to understand the children, create healthy routines, establish clear boundaries. All lasted between 2 weeks and 3 months. All left with the same defeated expression. The children won't accept me, Mr. Sterling. It's as if they're looking for someone specific. And they were right. Leo, Matthew, and Emma rejected every hug, every attempt at comfort, every lullaby. They cried when fed, cried when their clothes were changed, cried when bathed. As if their entire body was an open wound no one knew how to heal. James had learned to live with that constant sound. The background crying had become the soundtrack of his life. When he left for work, the silence of the car made him nervous. When he returned home, the crying greeted him like a loyal and destructive dog. But this morning he heard something he thought impossible. Emma's laughter. He had never heard her laugh. Not once in 5 years. He touches the intercom. Grace, is Margaret in the house? Yes, sir. She's cleaning the main parlor. Tell her to come to my office, now. Margaret Thompson has been working in the house for barely 3 weeks. He hired her through the same agency as always, trusted staff for distinguished households. Her resume had nothing special. Divorced woman, no children, experience in residential cleaning, impeccable but basic references. When she first entered the mansion, James barely looked at her. She was just another woman on the long list of employees who came and went from his life without leaving a trace. Brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, discreet clothing, efficient movements. Invisible, just as he preferred, but there was something strange from day one. The children didn't cry when she arrived. James noticed but didn't think much of it. Maybe they were tired, maybe the current nanny had sedated them with some syrup. But on the second day it happened again, and the third. Margaret cleaned silently, but every time she passed near the children, they followed her with their eyes, like abandoned puppies recognizing the scent of something familiar. She knocks softly but firmly. Come in. Margaret enters with hands slightly damp from so much cleaning. Her eyes avoid direct contact, as she's learned to do during years working for wealthy families. Stay invisible, Don't ask questions. Don't create bonds. Sit down, Margaret. She hesitates. Domestic staff don't sit in the master's office. But something in James's voice is different today. It's not the cold and distant voice as always. There's something else. Invulnerability? She sits on the edge of the chair, back straight. I saw you this morning with my children. Margaret lowers her gaze. Her heart races. Are they going to fire her? Did she do something wrong? You were singing in Russian. Heavy silence fills the office. The tick-tock of the wall clock marks each second like a countdown. Where did you learn that song? Margaret looks up for the first time. Her brown eyes hold an ancient sadness, as if they carry stories she's never told anyone. From your wife, sir. James feels as if he's just been punched in the stomach. What did you say? I knew Mrs. Sarah at the hospital during her pregnancy. I worked there as a cleaning assistant on the night shift. She couldn't sleep, and I kept her company. Margaret's voice trembles slightly, but she continues. One night, she asked me to play music. She was afraid something would happen to the babies. I played her a Russian song my grandmother taught me when I was little. A lullaby about 3 birds finding their way home. James can't breathe. Mrs. Sarah told me she felt the babies move when I sang, that they calmed down. She asked me to teach it to her so she could sing it to them when they were born. A tear rolls down Margaret's cheek. But she didn't have time to learn it completely. Des, could it be possible that a simple housekeeper holds the key to healing the broken heart of a millionaire family? Or is there something deeper that James hasn't yet discovered about the connection between Margaret and his dead wife? James stares at Margaret as if he's seeing a ghost. You knew Sarah? Margaret nods slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I worked at St. Mary's Hospital for 2 years, night shift, maternity ward. Your wife was admitted at 32 weeks for risk of premature birth, complete bed rest for 6 weeks. James's voice comes out hoarse. She never mentioned you. Because I was invisible, Mr. Sterling. The wealthy don't see cleaning staff, but the staff see everything. Margaret rises from the chair and walks to the window. For the first time in 3 weeks, she allows herself the luxury of looking at the garden from the master's perspective. Your wife cried every night. She was afraid of dying, afraid the babies wouldn't survive. The doctors told her everything would be fine, but she felt something they didn't understand. She turns toward James. She asked my name one night. It was unusual. No one ever asked my name. I said, Margaret Thompson, and she said, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you, Margaret. James closes his eyes. He can perfectly imagine Sarah doing that. She always treated everyone with respect, regardless of their social position. How did you come to sing to her? One night I found her crying in her room. It was very late, around 3 in the morning. She said she felt the babies very restless, that they moved a lot and she couldn't calm them. I asked if she wanted me to play soft music. Margaret sits back down, but this time without fear. I sang her the Russian song my grandmother taught me when I was very small. It's called Triplets, 3 birds. It tells of 3 small birds that get lost in a storm, but follow the sound of their mother's heart to find their way home. The words hit James like punches. 3 birds, 3 children. The moment I started singing, the babies calmed completely. Sarah put her hands on her belly and said, Margaret, they're listening. They're peaceful. She started crying, but with joy. And what happened next? She asked me to teach her the song. Every night after my shift, I stayed an extra half hour with her. I taught her the Russian pronunciation, the meaning of each word. She had a good memory, learned quickly. Margaret pauses, as if the memory hurt her. But she only managed to learn half. The song has 3 verses, 1 for each bird. Sarah only learned the first before she doesn't need to finish the sentence. James stands and walks to his desk. He opens the bottom drawer, the one he always keeps locked. He takes out a small wooden box where he keeps the few personal belongings of Sarah's, that he couldn't throw away. Her diary, her wedding ring, her last letters. He searches through the papers until he finds a crumpled sheet with Sarah's handwriting. "Dearest James, if something happens to me, please find Margaret Thompson. She works at the hospital at night. She knows something our children need. The babies recognize her. Trust her, even if you don't understand why. With love, Sarah." Eriki, he extends the letter to Margaret with trembling hands. "Sarah wrote this 2 days before she died. I never understood what it meant. I thought it was delusions from the medication." Margaret reads the letter and her eyes fill with tears again. She knew something could happen. "The last day I saw her, she took my hands and said, 'Margaret, if my babies cry and find no comfort, look for them. Sing them the complete song. They will recognize you.' Oh, why didn't you look for me before? Why did you wait 5 years? Because I thought it was grief talking, because I'm a housekeeper and you're James Sterling, because I didn't know if you'd believe me." James sits heavily in his chair. The entire world he had built after Sarah's death, cold, controlled, rational, is crumbling. "How did you end up working here?" "Pure coincidence. When the agency called me to work at a house in Kensington, they didn't know the exact address. When I arrived and saw your name on the gate, I almost ran away, but then I heard the children crying." She leans forward. "That crying, Mr. Sterling, was exactly the same sound they made when they were in their mother's womb, before I sang, as if they had been waiting 5 years to hear the rest of the song. At that moment, as if summoned by the conversation, small footsteps are heard running down the hall. The office door bursts open, and Leo, Matthew, and Emma rush in without permission. "Papa, where's Margaret?" asks Emma with bright eyes. James looks at them amazed. It's the first time in 5 years they've entered his office voluntarily. It's the first time they've sought him for something other than crying. "We want her to sing to us again," says Matthew, approaching Margaret without fear. Leo climbs onto his father's lap, something he'd never done, and looks directly into his eyes. "Papa, when Margaret sings, I see Mama. Do you see her too? What mystery lies behind this extraordinary connection between a humble housekeeper and 3 children who seem to have been waiting for her their entire lives? And what will happen when someone tries to separate them?" That night, James cannot sleep. He stays awake until 3 in the morning, walking through the silent house, trying to process what he's discovered. For the first time in 5 years, there's no nighttime crying. The children sleep deeply in their beds, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from their small shoulders. He goes to Sarah's room, which he's kept exactly the same since her death, and sits on the bed they once shared. He opens the drawer of his wife's nightstand, where she kept her most intimate things. He finds another diary, one he hadn't seen before. The final pages are written in shaky handwriting, clearly during the last days of her pregnancy. March 15th. Margaret came again tonight. The babies move less when she sings. It's as if her voice were a natural sedative. I asked her to teach me the complete song. She says there are 3 verses, one for each of my children. March 18th. Something's wrong. I feel it in my body. The doctors say everything's fine, but I know it's not true. I wrote a letter to James about Margaret. If something happens to me, he needs to know there's someone who can care for our babies the way they need. March 20th. I had a horrible nightmare. I dreamed my children cried for years and years, searching for a voice they couldn't find. Margaret promised me that if something happened to me, she would look for them. I don't know if she can keep her promise, but it's the only thing that gives me peace. March 22nd, last entry. Tomorrow they'll do the cesarean. I'm afraid, but also hopeful. If everything goes well, I'll teach the complete song to my babies together with Margaret. If something happens to me, I trust that destiny will reunite them. I love you, James. I love you with all my soul. James closes the diary with tears streaming down his face. Sarah knew. Somehow she knew something was going to happen and had tried to protect her children even after death. The next day, he decides to do something he hasn't done in 5 years. Stay home. He cancels all his meetings and dedicates himself to observing Margaret with the children. What he sees leaves him speechless. It's not just that the children are calm, it's that they've awakened. Leo, who had never shown interest in books, asks Margaret to read him stories. Matthew, who rejected any type of food, sits down to breakfast without protesting. Emma, who hadn't spoken a complete sentence in years, doesn't stop asking questions. Margaret, why is the sky blue? Margaret, do flowers feel cold? Margaret, can Mama hear when we sing? And Margaret answers each question with infinite patience, with wisdom that doesn't come from books, but from something deeper. James realizes he's not seeing a housekeeper caring for children. He's seeing a mother with her children, a mother who had been waiting for them as much as they for her. But the happiness doesn't last long. Friday morning, he receives a call that freezes his blood. Mr. Sterling, this is Dr. Margaret Foster, child psychologist at Great Ormond Street Hospital. I understand your children have shown recent behavioral changes. I'd like to schedule an urgent evaluation. I don't understand. Who told you my children need evaluation? Someone concerned about their well-being called our social services department. They reported that there's a domestic employee creating dangerous emotional dependency with the minors. James feels as if ice water had been thrown on him. What person? I can't reveal the informant's identity, but I can tell you your children are at risk of suffering reactive attachment disorder. This employee could be manipulating their emotional vulnerability to create dependency that could be traumatic long-term. Doctor, my children are better than ever. For the first time in 5 years, they're precisely why I'm worried, Mr. Sterling. Such drastic emotional changes in traumatized children can be symptoms of psychological manipulation. I need to see them today. It's a preventive court order. James hangs up with trembling hands. Someone is betraying them. Someone who knows what's happening in his house wants to separate Margaret from his children. But who? And why? Can James protect Margaret from an accusation that could forever separate his children from the only person who understands them? And who is the hidden enemy wanting to destroy this family when they've finally found happiness? Dr. Margaret Foster arrives at the Sterling mansion at exactly 3 o'clock. She's a 55-year-old woman with perfectly arranged hair, impeccable grey suit, and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She walks with the authority of someone accustomed to wealthy families obeying her without question. Mr. Sterling, thank you for receiving me on such short notice. James receives her in the main parlour, immediately noticing how her eyes take mental inventory of everything she sees. The expensive furniture, original paintings, impeccable decoration. She's not here just for the children. She's evaluating the entire family. Doctor, Foster, before you see my children, I want you to know they're better than ever. I don't understand why someone would think they need psychological intervention. Mr. Sterling, I understand your confusion, but precisely those sudden changes are what worry us. Children who have lived through deep trauma don't heal overnight. When it happens, there's usually emotional manipulation involved. She sits on the sofa and takes out a folder full of papers. I understand you hired a new domestic employee 3 weeks ago, Margaret Thompson. Yes. And the changes in the children's behavior began exactly when she arrived? Doctor, I don't see what the problem is. My children are finally... The problem, Mr. Sterling, is that traumatized children develop very specific survival mechanisms. When an external figure breaks those mechanisms so abruptly, it can cause irreversible psychological damage. She opens the folder and shows him several documents. I have here reports from 17 childcare specialists who worked in your house during the past 5 years. All agree the children presented symptoms of severe reactive attachment disorder. All recommended professional psychological therapy. And I hired them. I hired 4 different psychologists during these 5 years. None could help my children. Because you didn't allow the treatment to work. Every time the children showed resistance to the therapeutic process, which is normal, you fired the professional and looked for easy solutions. Dr. Foster's voice becomes colder. And now, a domestic employee without professional training appears and magically cures 3 children who resisted 5 years of specialized treatment. Don't you find that suspicious? James feels anger growing in his chest. What I find suspicious is someone calling social services to report that my children are better. Who was the person who contacted you? I can't reveal that, but I can tell you it's someone who knows your family situation very well, someone who has seen firsthand these children's suffering for years. At that moment, Margaret enters the parlour with a tea tray. Her hands tremble slightly, but she maintains composure. "Excuse me, Mr. Sterling, do you need anything else?" Dr. Foster examines her from head to toe, like a detective studying a suspect. "You must be Margaret Thompson." "Yes, doctor." "What specific psychological techniques have you been using with the children?" Margaret looks at her confused. "I don't understand the question, doctor. I just care for them." "You care for them? Interesting. And that Russian song you sing to them, where did you learn specialized music therapy techniques for childhood trauma?" "It's not music therapy, it's just a song that coincidentally calms 3 children who have been resistant to 5 years of professional treatment. Very convenient." James intervenes. "Doctor, I think you're misinterpreting the situation. Mr. Sterling, I need to evaluate the children immediately. If this woman has created artificial emotional dependency, each day that passes will make it harder to reverse the damage." They go to the playroom, where Leo, Matthew and Emma are building a tower with blocks alongside Margaret. It's the first time in 5 years they've played together without fighting. Dr. Foster immediately takes notes. "I notice pack behavior." The 3 children cluster around the artificial attachment figure. This is typical of emotional manipulation. Leo looks up. "Hello, are you a doctor?" "Yes, Leo, I came to talk to you. Do you like playing with Margaret?" "Yes. She knows how to make us not afraid." "Afraid of what?" Leo looks at Matthew and Emma. The 3 communicate with that special complicity siblings have. "Afraid that Mama won't find us." "And did Margaret tell you that Mama will find you?" "No. She sings us the song Mama wanted to sing to us. It's the song so we don't get lost." "Doctor." Foster writes furiously, "I see she's using the deceased maternal figure to create artificial emotional connection." "It's not artificial," says Emma, with a surprisingly mature voice for her 5 years. "It's real. Margaret knew Mama." The doctor turns to James. "Is this true? This employee knew your wife?" "Yes. She worked at the hospital where Sarah was admitted." "Then we have premeditated manipulation. This woman knew exactly how to exploit these children's trauma to create dependency." Margaret, who has been silent, finally speaks. "Doctor, I promised their mother I would care for them. It's not manipulation. It's love." "Love, Mrs. Thompson, is not enough to treat complex psychological trauma. You have no training, no certification, and you're interfering with these children's natural healing process." She turns to James. "Mr. Sterling, I must be direct. This woman represents a danger to your children's emotional stability. I recommend her immediate removal and intensive treatment to undo the dependency damage she's created." Leo, Matthew and Emma automatically move closer to Margaret, taking her hands. "Is Margaret going away?" asks Matthew with tears in his eyes. "We don't want her to leave," says Emma. "Please don't send her away," begs Leo. Dr. Foster observes the children's reaction and smiles with cruel satisfaction. "See? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Extreme emotional dependency. These children have transferred their entire grief process toward an external figure. It's psychologically dangerous." James looks at his children. For the first time in 5 years, they're expressing real emotions. Fear, yes, but also love, also hope. Dr. Foster, may I speak with you privately? They go to his office, leaving Margaret with the children. Who contacted you to come here? Mr. Sterling, I already told you I can't. Was it Grace, the house manager? I can't reveal. Was it the previous nanny? Some dismissed employee? Dr. Foster hesitates for a moment. It's a small doubt, almost imperceptible, but James notices it. Doctor, someone wants to separate my children from the only person who's made them happy in 5 years. And you're helping that person. Why? Because it's my professional job to protect minors from... How much are they paying you? The silence that follows is deafening. Who is the hidden enemy willing to pay to destroy a family's happiness? And can James discover the truth before it's too late to protect his children? How much are they paying you? James's question hangs in the air like an accusation. Dr. Foster tries to maintain her professional composure, but something in her gaze betrays her. Mr. Sterling, I don't understand what you're insinuating. I'm insinuating that someone hired you to come here. Not to help my children, but to separate Margaret from them. Who was it? The doctor rises abruptly from the chair. I won't tolerate these accusations. I have legal authority to... To what? Take my children away? Institutionalize them while you investigate if Margaret is dangerous? The doctor's silence is answer enough. James walks to his desk and opens the drawer where he keeps the most important documents. He takes out a folder he's been reviewing all week. Doctor Foster, do you know what I discovered when I investigated your professional history? That in the past 3 years you've been hired by 17 wealthy London families to evaluate risk situations with domestic employees. He shows her the documents. In all cases, you recommended immediate removal of the employee. In all cases, the families ended up hiring staff from a specific agency. Premium Domestic Services. Does that sound familiar? The doctor pales. I don't see what that has to do with... Premium Domestic Services is owned by Victoria Hammond, my house's previous manager. The woman I fired 6 months ago because she mistreated my children. The truth hits James like lightning. Victoria is who hired you. She was who called social services. She wants her job back, and Margaret is an obstacle. Dr. Foster tries to leave the office, but James blocks her path. How much did Victoria pay you to come here? £5,000? 10,000? Mr. Sterling, this is extortion, it's manipulation, it's using my traumatized children as pawns in a revenge game. At that moment, a heartbreaking scream is heard from the playroom. It's Emma. James and the doctor run there and find a scene that freezes their blood. Grace, the current house manager, is trying to forcibly remove Margaret. The 3 children cling to her, crying desperately. Grace, what's happening? Shouts James. Mr. Sterling, I received a call from social services. They said they had an order to remove the employee immediately while the investigation is conducted. Who called? Someone named Victoria Hammond. She said she was the new case supervisor assigned by the court. James feels like he's about to explode. Victoria doesn't work for social services. Victoria is the woman I fired for mistreating my children. Grace immediately releases Margaret, confused. But she knew all the case details. She knew about Dr. Foster, knew about the children, because she organized all this. James takes out his phone and dials a number. London Social Services. This is James Sterling. I need to confirm if you have any removal order for an employee at my house. What? There's no open case with my name? Are you sure? He hangs up and looks directly at Dr. Foster. There's no open case. There's no court order. You came here under false pretenses. Dr. Foster finally breaks. Victoria paid me £15,000. She told me you had hired an employee who was emotionally abusing your children. She showed me photos of the children crying, videos of them rejecting other nannies. She made me believe I was helping. And it didn't occur to you to verify the information. Victoria worked in your house for 3 years. She knew intimate details about your wife's death, about the children's trauma. Everything she told me was verifiable. James approaches his children, who are still clinging to Margaret. Grace, call the police. File a complaint against Victoria Hammond for identity theft, extortion and conspiracy. He turns to the doctor. Dr. Foster, you're going to write an official report stating that my children are in perfect emotional condition under Margaret Thompson's care. And you're going to explain exactly how you were manipulated to come here. Mr. Sterling, there are no excuses. You almost destroyed my family for money. Now you're going to help repair it. Leo, who has been listening to the entire conversation with the intelligence of a child who has lived through too much trauma, approaches his father. Papa, why did that lady want to take Margaret away? James kneels to be at his children's height. Because there are people who don't understand love, Leo. People who think everything can be bought or controlled. But Margaret is going to stay. James looks at Margaret, who is still trembling from shock. Margaret is going to stay forever. If she wants to. Margaret nods with tears in her eyes. I want to stay. I promised your mama I would care for you, and promises to mothers are never broken. Emma approaches and takes her father's hand. Papa, are we a real family now? James hugs his 3 children together with Margaret. For the first time in 5 years, he feels complete. Yes, my love, now we're a real family. But the real surprise is yet to come. Because at the bottom of Sarah's belongings box, James is about to discover something that will forever change his understanding of what love and destiny truly mean. That night, after the police took Victoria Hammond away in handcuffs, and Dr. Foster signed a report retracting all her accusations, James finds himself alone in his office. The children sleep deeply for the first time in 5 years without nightmares. Margaret is in the kitchen, preparing tomorrow's breakfast and softly singing the complete Russian song. James opens Sarah's belongings box again. This time, he reviews every paper, every photograph, every memory with different attention. He's not looking for answers about the past, he's looking for signs about the future. At the bottom of the box, he finds something he'd never seen before, a small envelope, sealed with his name written in Sarah's shaky handwriting. For James, open when you find peace. With trembling hands, he breaks the seal and takes out a letter along with a small photograph. The photograph takes his breath away. It's Sarah in the hospital, smiling weakly while Margaret shows her something on paper. On the back, in Sarah's handwriting, Margaret and I learning the song for our babies, March 20th. The letter says, My dearest love, if you're reading this, it means what I feared happened, but it also means you found the gift I left prepared for all of you. Margaret is not coincidence. Margaret is a miracle. When I was in the hospital, losing strength each day, I begged life, the universe, any force that would listen, to give me a way to care for our babies, even after my death. The next day, I met Margaret. She told me she had lost her only daughter in a traffic accident 2 years before. A 5-year-old girl named Sarah, like me. She had also been searching for a reason to keep living. Don't you find it extraordinary that a woman who lost a daughter named Sarah would meet a woman named Sarah who was about to leave 3 children orphaned? I taught her everything I could about all 4 of you. I told her about your quirks, how you like your coffee, how you need silence to work. I told her about the names we had chosen for the babies and why. I described every corner of our house, but above all I taught her to love our children before they were born. Margaret promised me that if something happened to me, she would find a way to reach you, no matter how long it took. It took 5 years, my love. 5 years of searching until destiny put her in the right place. Don't let her go. She's not just a housekeeper. She's the mother I chose for our children before dying. And if someday you fall in love with her, because I know you will, because I chose her for you too, don't feel guilt, feel gratitude, because real love doesn't end with death. It multiplies. With all my eternal love, Sarah P.S. Margaret has something for you, something I gave her before dying. Ask her about the second box. James drops the letter and runs to the kitchen. He finds Margaret sitting at the island, drinking tea and looking through the window toward the garden, where tomorrow the children will play again. Margaret. She turns, startled by the intensity in his voice. Sarah left me a letter. She says you have a second box. Margaret's eyes fill with tears. Mr. Sterling, please call me James. Margaret nods and stands up. She goes to the kitchen cabinet and takes out a small metal box that had been hidden behind the pots. Sarah asked me to keep it until the right moment. She opens the box, and inside are three things: a ring, a letter, and a recording on an old cassette. She told me I would know when the right moment was when you stopped being afraid to be happy. She hands him the recording. This is for the children. Sarah recorded the 3 complete verses of the Russian song. She wanted them to hear her voice singing them the complete song at least once in their lives. James takes the cassette with hands trembling so much he can barely hold it. Why didn't you give it to me before? Because before you weren't ready to hear her. Sarah told me, when James can hear my voice without breaking into pieces, give him the recording. Margaret takes the ring, Sarah's original engagement ring, which she had returned to the hospital when her fingers swelled during pregnancy. And this is for the woman who will care for your children when I can't. She extends it to James. Sarah asked me to give it to the person who would accept loving them as she would have loved them. James looks at the ring, then looks at Margaret. And who is that person? Margaret smiles through her tears. I think that's for you to decide. At that moment, they hear small footsteps on the stairs. Leo, Matthew, and Emma appear in pajamas, awakened by the voices. Papa, is everything all right? Asks Leo. Yes, my love. Everything is more than all right. James looks at his 3 children, then looks at Margaret. He thinks about Sarah, about 5 years of pain, about 3 weeks of miracles, about love that doesn't end with death but multiplies. He kneels in front of Margaret with Sarah's ring in his hand. Margaret Thompson, will you be the mother Sarah chose for our children? Leo, Matthew, and Emma immediately understand what's happening. They run over and hug Margaret around her legs. Say yes, Margaret. Please say yes. We want you to be our mama. Margaret hugs them, then looks at James with a smile that could light up all of London. Yes, yes, I want to. And at the moment James slides Sarah's ring onto Margaret's finger, they hear something impossible. Sarah's voice coming from the old cassette that had activated by itself, softly singing the complete Russian song. All 5 embrace in the kitchen, while Sarah's voice envelops them like a blessing. Trai ptitsi leteli domoi, trai ptitsi nashli svoyu semyu. 3 birds flying home, 3 birds found their family. The Kensington mansion no longer seems like a mausoleum. The windows are always open, the hallways resonate with children's laughter. The garden is full of flowers that Emma and Margaret plant together each spring. Leo, now 8 years old, reads stories aloud every night. Matthew builds impossible towers with his blocks and knocks them down laughing. Emma sings the complete Russian song in perfect accent while helping her new baby sister fall asleep. Yes, baby sister. James and Margaret married 6 months after that night in the kitchen, and a year ago they received the most unexpected gift, a little girl with Margaret's brown eyes and Sarah's smile. They named her Sarah Margaret Sterling Thompson. It's Friday morning. James comes down the stairs barefoot, something he'd never done before meeting Margaret, and heads to the kitchen following the sound of the Russian song. He finds his family exactly where he found them 3 years ago, Margaret sitting on the floor, singing softly with the 4 children forming a circle around her. But this time it's different. This time, Margaret is not the housekeeper who sings to calm the pain. She's the mother who sings to celebrate life. And this time, when Leo looks up and sees his father in the doorway, he doesn't say, "Papa," she sings like Mama. He says, "Papa, come." Mama is teaching us the 4th verse, the one she wrote for baby Sarah. James sits on the floor with his family and listens as Margaret invents new verses for the Russian song. Verses about 4 birds who found their home. Verses about love that never ends. Verses about mothers who care from heaven and mothers who embrace on earth. And as he listens, James understands something that has taken him 8 years to comprehend. Not all miracles arrive with great signs. Some arrive with blue aprons and hands weathered by work. Some arrive singing songs in foreign languages. Some arrive exactly when the heart is ready to heal. And some miracles have names. They're called family. Did this story of love, loss, and hope move you? If you believe there are people in your life who need to remember that miracles exist, share this tale. Because in a world that sometimes seems cold and calculating, we need stories that restore our faith in human goodness. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the soul. And if this story changed something in you, leave us a comment telling us which moment moved you most, because the best stories aren't the ones we read, they're the ones we live. Until the next story that will change your day.